Hi, this is Sam from Wargamer Online, and I'm going to show you how to paint a Mountainscape base. So to begin with, we're going to use PVA glue and pretty much pile it all over the base. You want it quite thick because we're going to put a load of stuff on it now and we want it to stick. And we're going to drop on some larger pieces of slate. And you can do as big as you want really, but this is what I had to hand. And I try not to have them off the end of the base because if you knock them when they're fully dry, they generally break. So try to keep it in the centre. And then fill the rest of the gaps that haven't been filled with slate using sand. And you can drop this into the pot, or you can just trickle it over the top like I've done. The main thing is just tidy up around the rim. You don't want the sand over the edges. And then you let that fully dry. Primed it with black, and then I'm going to paint on Mechanicus standard grey with a brush. If you've got the spray can of that colour, just spray it on rather than using the black. Generally do that. My Space Wolves are all done with Mechanicus grey bases, and I just lined them up on a stick, sprayed them all, and then went on to the next step, and it saved a lot of time. So the next step is dry brushing this with Dawnstone. This looked more like a wet brush though, rather than a dry brush. The main thing is you pick out the raised areas, and those tops of the slate are going to be a lighter grey than the bottom half of it. And just leave that darker grey in the crevices. Okay, the next one is going to have to be a dry brush, which is using Karak Stone. And you want to go over this fairly heavily because we're going to darken it down with a wash anyway. And this is just going to pick out the raised areas, the raised sand and the tops of the slate. And then when that is fully dried, we're going to put a wash over the entire base just to dull it back down again. And this will blend the Karak Stone into the greys. So we're going to use Agrax Earthshade. For my Space Wolves, I normally use AK Interactive's Summer Curse Earth, which is an enamel wash. So it gives it a different tint. So if you wanted to use a different wash or a different product entirely, feel free to chuck it on at this stage. And you can change it depending on what you prefer really. The last step of painting is just tidying up the rim using Abaddon Black. Doing a couple of coats of this, and I would stick it on the top of a paint pot if you can, just so you can manoeuvre it around and not get your fingers on all of the black paint and then take off some of the paint that you're actually doing. This helps remove that problem. And then the next bit is completely up to you, whether you want to add any sort of tufts or any static grass. I've put them on there just to show you what it looks like. So it's Middenland and Mordheim Tufts, and you can either stick these on because they have a self-adhesive on the bottom, or you can use a bit of PVA glue just to make them stick a little bit better. And then in the gaps in between all of these slate pieces, you can just stick them down as and where you want them. And that one's being tricky. And that is that base done.